Let's learn more about the IPVM research service starting April 4th. IPVM is best known for exposing powerful companies. We've worked with, partnered, and collaborated with some of the biggest names from the Wall Street Journal to the New York Times, the Financial Times, BBC, Reuters, etc. And grounding all of this is our research. Whether we're doing testing or investigating legal documents or conducting interviews, IPVM spends thousands of hours literally each month doing research into what is going on with video surveillance and physical security technologies around the world. By contrast, if you look at social media, lots of people make whatever comments they want, and people can quickly make comments about something being good or bad. But really what makes IPVM different is that when we criticize organizations, it's based on this immense amount of research. And we've invested heavily to do this, including in 2019. We started our 12,000-foot testing facility, and we continue to expand the number of tests, the team doing tests, and more to go deeper and deeper, both on the testing side and in investigations. But we want to go even deeper. Many people might want to go broader or keep basically surface level, but our organization is focused on, can we go even deeper in video surveillance? Can we go even deeper in access control? There's so many different companies or different technologies, products. How deep can we go? The main challenge is that it's expensive to do this type of research. Someone in 2 minutes or whatever can make a comment on social media about anything. When IPVM does its reporting, most of our reporting these days takes dozens or hundreds of hours to put together. So there's a lot of time, there's a lot of money spent. And so the big question becomes is, well, how do you fund doing this type of deep research in an era where social media is so filled with just off-the-cuff comments? Originally, we started as IP Video Market Info, which was a bootstrap one-person startup back in 2008. We set our pricing for $199 back in 2010 or 2011. So it's been more than a decade since we've done anything with pricing or packaging. And since that time, we've grown to be over 25 people. We now do over 600 different reports per year, software development, online shows, etc. When we started, this was in the era of information wants to be free. It was all about, hey, give it away, make some money in advertising, you'll figure it out. This clearly had major issues because it incented cheapness and going for sort of like quick thrills or quick hits. Things certainly improved in the 2010s when we saw the rise of annual subscriptions. So whether it was the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the LA Times, whether it's $99, $199, but there was this all access, one payment a year got you everything. And there was definitely some benefits of this for IPVM and other organizations. It did encourage more quality reporting relative to basically a free ad model. And it did help people learn more because there was an incentive to do higher quality research. But in this model, there's a fundamental flaw or issue when you have this all access flat rate. Think of it like a buffet, but it's like a buffet you only get paid once a year. The only way for organizations like IPVM or the New York Times in this model is to either add subscribers or get subscribers not to churn. If you add more value to existing subscribers, there's really not a mechanism for those subscribers to reflect that value back to the organizations that's doing the research and reporting. It's pretty clear that what this happens is that when you give everything away for a flat rate, you're prioritizing breadth. And I'll give you an example for the New York Times. If you look at, they bought The Athletic to expand more into sports. They've bought Wordle. They have their crossword puzzles, recipes, right? Instead of the New York Times going deeper and deeper into politics and business, because they have this flat rate model, it's much more advantageous to go broader and to capture other people. Now, IPVM could and potentially will do things like that in the long term. We're doing more in alarm monitoring, in audio visual, in IT networking, wireless networking, so on and so forth. But we really want to stay and become even deeper in video surveillance and access control. The challenge that we find here, and this is something we deal with internally on a daily, weekly basis, is that when we're looking at things for us to report on, we have this common challenge where that there are certain things that we want to report on that only take a few hours to do. And there are other things that we want to report on, like testing or doing these types of deep investigations that can take 100 or 200 hours to do. The difficulty is that this sort of, let's say, topic B, the thing that's really hard to do, it doesn't really get that many more views than the sort of I wouldn't say superficial, because sometimes we find scoops, we find information, but it's way more expensive to produce. So imagine in your own business, if you have these two products and one basically you could do really quickly and one took 30 amount of the time. For instance, you're a security integrator, pretty sure you're going to charge 30 times more money. IPVM's model and most of sort of the media model, when you go about subscriptions, it doesn't matter, right? Like you have to basically give it away at sort of the same rate. And so I think what we've sort of understood, and I think we'll see other media organizations, is that this flat rate pricing encourages to shift to topic A rather than topic B, because you don't get that much more from doing topic B, and it costs way more to do. This is what I see as being the paradox of deep research. And the paradox is pretty simple, is that the deeper you go, the more expensive it is to do, and the fewer number of people that are interested in it. So we've done like shootouts of health monitoring systems. It's like, well, a shootout health monitoring systems are pretty expensive. You've got to get these VMSs, you've got to test them, you've got to look at all these sort of low-level features. But the reality is there's not a lot of people that are super interested in it, right? So it doesn't really fit in this 199 model. There are other examples of this on the financial side. When we do sort of in-depth financial analysis of companies, there's not many people who are interested in these niche companies. But the people who do, they tend to get a lot of value out of it because they tend to be decision makers or executives where this information is quite important. So this is a fundamental paradox to understand when you do deeper research, which is how do you pay for that? And I'll give it a quick analogy of bicycles. So you'll see over here, you've got a job to be done. And the first one on the left is just don't fall down. Middle, being social. Final one on the right side, win the race. The addressable market for learning how to ride a bike is pretty huge. For social, moderate. Maybe there's millions of people who ride bikes, but certainly nowhere near as many as want to learn how to ride a bike. And then if you really want to win a race, really there's not that many people that are like genuinely trying to win competitive bike races. The cost to produce, now here's the paradox where it comes into play, is it's pretty low to teach someone how to ride a bike. Most people know how to ride a bike. It's not super sophisticated, again, relative to winning the Tour de France or something like that. Whereas the social thing is a little bit in the middle, right? You need to have some sort of knowledge. So like not anyone can do it. And then if you're looking at something like winning races, if you want to go over professional bikes, right, and the differences in terms of the effectiveness of the bikes, right, you need to have quite a lot of expertise. These bikes are expensive. That's like IPVM. When you look at the pricing, sure, if you just want to teach someone how to ride a bike, totally understandable that it's going to be free and supported by advertising. If you're doing sort of a social type thing, maybe you can do a small subscription. It's sort of like an old school magazine. But if you really want to help elite racers win races, you're going to have to charge a much higher price point because there's just not that many people interested. And basically help the people who are interested, it's going to cost a lot of money. And, in this analogy, clearly IPVM is like winning the race, right? It's for these elite, basically, participants that are trying to figure out what to do with surveillance and security. And this is where we see the value of deep research, is that we can go deeper and we can basically help people or help organizations and executives and decision makers really understand what's going on. So my background before I started IPVM, I ran product management for a manufacturer. And we looked for a long time to try to basically like buy our competitors' equipment and try to figure out how to test it and see how it worked, et cetera. We literally easily spent many thousands of dollars, and it wasn't a terribly fruitful approach. When I look at it, and sort of when I started IPVM, a lot of what we do here is that this would be something that would be fantastic for me when I was running product management, right? To have basically this information on these niche players. And that's one of the big things here is that, there's so many of these niche players in video surveillance and access control, and it's really hard otherwise to get the type of information. And that's the type of value we see. Whether you're a developer and a manufacturer, whether you're an integrator trying to pick products to partner with, whether you're a larger end user and are trying to make sure that you don't waste a lot of money on bad products, this is the value we see in terms of going deep. And the problem with video surveillance, it's a niche, right? Of all the things in the world, it's a niche within security itself. And security is a niche within sort of the world at large. And the other problem, and give you an interesting anecdote, someone asked actually a pretty interesting question. They said, hey, why don't you do a poll of your subscribers, ask them what they want to see tested, and just prioritize the handful of companies that people really want to be tested. It turns out, unfortunately, we surveyed, for example, this one time, we had over 200 responses, and we had something like 150 different unique responses. There's just a very long tail of what people want tested. And it's not, realistic for us to test Vicon or Lilin, ITIS, or some things like that, and expect that there's lots of people. And a niche of a niche like this, maybe there's 100 or 200 people really interested. Selling this basically for $199 each, it's just not feasible basically to go really deep into all these types of companies. So the solution is this multi-$1,000 annual service, what we're calling the IPVM research service, that will properly fund it, again, for the smaller number of people that are really interested in this type of information. It's important basically for their organizations. It's very, very valuable to spend thousands of dollars on this type of research. And let me answer a couple of questions here. So one, in terms of what will be included. So testing. So we do product testing and shootouts. We're going to do more of those product testing and shootouts. That's going to go basically in the research service. Financial analysis, digging into the financials of various companies. That, again, is something that we think for executive and decision makers are really important. And competitive analysis, which we're looking to do a lot more about, which is where are companies trending, which companies are better, what are they doing, how are they hiring, where are they growing, where are their weaknesses. So these are the types of things that we're going to be putting together in terms of the research service. And we are going to be expanding our coverage. And that's one of the big things that historically, when we did things like testing internally, we would say, yeah, like we're doing this test and it's going to take 300 hours and like we're definitely not going to get that many people to sign up and it's going to cost us a ton of money. The advantage here is that now that we have an opportunity to ask these larger organizations to pay, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 per year, is that it provides the level of funding that's consistent with this type of doing deeper research. At the same time, we're keeping the $199 annual plan, which we're renaming Info Plus, and it's going to keep 90% of what we currently do. The breaking news we do on a daily basis, the profiles of companies we do each week, the calculator. We've got 6 annual ebooks that we upgrade every year. We have 200 plus tutorials. We have, 500, nearly 600 online shows recorded already, presentations, and we're doing about 7 of these sort of online show weeks each year. So there's still an immense value in the $199 annual Info Plus plan for those that choose to remain. And that's our expectation, that most people, especially in the beginning, will choose to remain in this sort of very low cost plan. Some people ask about IPVM doing reports a la carte. And the issue is, especially with these testing reports or competitive analysis, it's too expensive and there are too few people are interested in it, that it doesn't make financial sense to try to sell it for like $10 or $100 for a report that there might only be 100 people in the world that are interested in seeing. So it's not really viable to sort of like, only you just want to buy sort of like one report. And what we've seen, and coming from my background on the product management side, is that, like, listen, if you're a manufacturer and you really want this competitive intel about how this competitor works, listen, that's worth a couple $1,000 for you. If you really want to understand how your competitors work and you want to beat your competitors, having IPVM do a fair and accurate report of your competitors is worth that. I mean, again, you could try to do it yourself. It's going to take a lot of time and money. You may not be able to figure it out, right? We have more expertise in sort of understanding the market as a whole, and we can do sort of far more tests and working, and interacting with figuring out what's wrong and really pointing out those types of things. So there was a question about just raise the price on everyone. And inflation is certainly a big deal right now. The price of gas, price of many different things. And we don't want to raise the price on everyone. We think it's a fundamentally unfair thing to do. One element we looked at when we examined how people use IPVM, it was very, very clear that only minorities, something in the range of 10 to 25% of our subscribers, regularly access tests and financial reporting. So it wouldn't make sense to charge all of our subscribers $50, $100, whatever it is more, when only a fraction basically really, are demanding and regularly using this research that costs far more money to do. So the pricing is roughly going to look like this. So we've heard, especially from the micro, nano businesses, as one person referred to themselves as, we're going to start at just $1,000 a year for the research service. And that can be paid monthly. So that would be effectively $90 per month if you're a micro type business. And the max price, even if you're sort of a company with thousands of employees, will be $10,000 annual, and that includes 5 user licenses. So I think this is a totally reasonable range for the type of research that we do and for the types of organizations that need to make important business decisions that deal with this physical security technology. And so we're going to answer more questions, and we have been on the site. So let me just show you here. We have a couple of things. If you look at this IPVM.com/research, we now list basically all of the reports that will be part of the research service. I mean, there's going to be a lot more reports coming, so this only shows what it is today. But this gives you a little bit of a feel of the types of reports that are going to be part of research. We also have a FAQ for the research service, so you can read more of the details, and you can ask your own questions, of course, as well. And then finally, under our articles section, you'll now see that all of our articles are tagged, whether they're Info Plus, which means the $199 existing sort of low-cost plan, or they're research, which is this $1,000 multi-$1,000 research service offering that's separate. And you can then just scan through and see Info Plus, research, Info Plus, research, Info Plus, free, Info Plus, 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 Info Plus. I think research, this gives you a sense. So we still think basically most of what we're going to do is doing on the Info Plus tier. We think we're doing a lot of really sort of deep research, very useful reporting on the research tier as well. So if you have questions, the final thing that I'll say here is we are also doing one-on-one calls with our head of marketing. So you can set up a call now or in the future to talk to them and to Mark. And then we'll be doing a formal announcement when we sort of open it up for subscriptions later this month. So that's it for now. Appreciate everyone's help. Thanks so much.